Adrian didn't come home for the night and didn't even call. The next evening, he entered the hallway with a nonchalant look, undressed, and headed for the bathroom. 10 minutes later, he walked into the kitchen, where his wife and daughters had almost finished dinner. "Oh, great. Everyone's here, and I'm not too late," said Adrian cheerfully and sat down at the table with a business-like look. He grabbed a piece of bread and hastily buttered it and began to chew, expecting to be served a plate of food too. But his wife didn't even look at him. "How long do I have to wait? I'm actually hungry," said Adrian boldly. The girls, sensing that there would be a serious conversation between their parents, retreated to their rooms. "Felicity, don't be angry. I didn't have a chance to warn you yesterday. And let's drop the subject. You should learn to trust your husband. Don't I have the right to spend time with my friends? And anyway, I've been working today. I'm tired and I'm hungry." Felicity nodded understandingly, but did not move from her seat. Then Adrian got up, stepped to the stove, and opening the lid, stared into the empty pan with a stupid smile. The next saucepan was empty too. With a smirk, Adrian turned and said, "Oh, you decided to punish me? Well, I'll be happy without dinner," he said proudly, and looked meaningfully at his wife. In fact, Adrian was glad that he got off so easy. He was about to leave the kitchen when suddenly Felicity spoke. "I warned you that you would be punished if you allowed yourself to spend another night outside the house," she said calmly. "Yes, so what? What will you do, Felicity? It won't go any further than threatening. And I know all your methods, and I've not been afraid of them for a long time." "Great. So I won't have a guilty conscience," grinned Felicity. "I'm leaving you, Adrian." Adrian burst out laughing. He was sure his wife had made up this nonsense only to scare him, and even if he could imagine that Felicity really left him, the children, he did not doubt a minute that he would do well, and could even finally get a break from her endless nagging, especially since the girls were all grown up and did not cause much trouble. "There's nowhere for you to go," Adrian said through laughter, "and if there is, you can pack your things and leave right now. Aren't you afraid to leave your daughters with me?" "I'm not afraid, because our mums will help you," replied Felicity, and looked at her husband with a triumphant look. "They'll be here soon." Adrian clutched his head and said frightenedly that he didn't want them to come, but Felicity only grinned and philosophically remarked that not everything happens in life the way you want it to. She also added that she had already told her mother and mother-in-law that she was leaving Adrian because she could no longer tolerate his constant absence from home. She said that her mother-in-law urged her to think about it and stay, while her mother was of a different opinion. But both of them agreed on one thing. The girls were better to stay in a familiar place with their father, and they offered to provide the necessary parenting assistance themselves. "Are they going to live here?" whispered Adrian in horror. "Yes, and that's why we need to vacate your study as soon as possible. Your mother will sleep there, and my mother will live in our bedroom. Sorry, but the living room is uncomfortable, so you will have to sleep in it," replied Felicity. Adrian was at a loss. It was strange that his mother and mother-in-law had suddenly agreed to do this, because they had never interfered in their life. Adrian asked Felicity to talk them out of it, fearing that they would not want to listen to him, but his wife only shook her head tiredly. "Adrian, who's to blame for what happened? I tried to explain to our mothers that you can handle everything on your own because you're not a little kid, but the problem is they don't believe you. Not even your mother." The doorbell rang. Adrian, almost crying, looked at Felicity and in a weak voice muttered, "How could you do this to me, Felicity?" The woman looked sadly at her husband and reminded him that she had warned him. but he wouldn't listen. And now, if he didn't like spending time with her, he would have to spend it with their mothers. "Maybe we can still change things?" asked Adrian, with hope in his voice. "No, Adrian, I'm sorry, but nothing can be changed," answered Felicity in a trembling voice. "You're staying here, and I'm leaving. I may have acted inhumanely, and I'll never forgive myself, but nothing can be undone. Goodbye." Adrian tossed and turned all night, tormented by nightmares. He dreamed that his daughters had grown up and married, but instead of leaving his house, they brought their husbands here. Then the young families had children, and then the daughters abandoned their husbands, left home, and their husbands' mothers moved in to replace them, to help their feckless sons raise their children. At this point, Adrian woke up, breaking into an icy sweat. He realized that it had long since been morning, and wandered glumly into the kitchen. His daughters and Felicity were sitting at the table. Adrian rubbed his eyes several times, still not believing what was happening. He stood for a few minutes in silence, and, convinced that this was not a dream or a hallucination, almost jumped for joy. "Felicity, you're here!" he exclaimed happily. "Well, I decided to give you a chance and came back," replied his wife. Adrian smiled contentedly, but suddenly came to his senses and asked frightenedly what to do now with the mothers settled in with them. Felicity calmly explained that they had moved out, promising not to interfere in their lives while their children were together. "What did my mother say?" asked Adrian apprehensively. "She asked me to let her know immediately when you're sleeping out again."